Morning, Ember Fest. Well, what is the purpose of a style guide? What problem should a style guide solve? And what is a Styleguide-Flow? I will take you all with me on a journey to discover and to have an answer to all these questions. Hi everyone, my name is Joao. I'm front-end engineer at Qonto. Jamel already presented a bit the product of Qonto. It's a financial solution for businesses. And yeah, it is a small part of the front-end team, colorful front-end team. First, let's define together what is a style guide. To do that, let's focus on the word itself. It's divided in two words, actually. The word style, what does it mean? Style stands for stylus. But yeah, what is stylus? Stylus is this. Stylus is a tool that was used 5,000 years ago to write on wax tablets. So as you understand, it has a strong link with a written document. Now the word guide, it's actually the same meaning as how we use it today. It comes from the old French language, and it means the one who shows the way. Okay, let's sum up. The word style guide. We have a written document that shows the way. But what about today? What about 5,000 years later? Do we still need a written document? I'm not sure about it. Today, the definition most of people use is a set of standards about writing, formatting, and design. And this is a valid definition for most of our jobs, especially for front-end engineer. It's valid too. Now, here comes our first question. What problem should a style guide solve? First, bike shading. Bike shading means spending time on futile discussions, spending time deciding the color of the bike shed, instead of focusing on real topics, instead of focusing on what matters. We don't want that. Of course, inconsistency. Imagine, in your code base, you have no rules. Everyone can use the pattern he prefers. Everyone can just use let, const, or var, and it leads to painful code review. How are you supposed to review something if you don't know what pattern you should advise to use? Everyone is free to use anything. So you can't say, okay, you should use that because of this, this, and this. You have to argue in every single merge request. And you are not even sure that you will not repeat the mistake right after. It definitely leads to higher lead time. Lead time is the time that takes a feature from the start to the end. So if the review takes longer, for example, and if basically any of the steps of the development of the feature takes longer, it will increase the lead time of the feature. It's bad for the company, it's bad for the product, and it's bad for the quality. Scaling difficulties. Imagine, you are a team of 5 people, 5 front-end engineers. You can't talk with each other. You can agree on patterns that you should or should not use. But what if you are 10, 20, 40? You have to define something. You have to define standards. You need a style guide for that. Elsewhere, anyone will go in its own direction. Inconsistency, bike shading, everything. It leads definitely to rework. Imagine, you work on a feature, you use a component to provide the UI, the desired UI, but the component is deprecated, we shouldn't use it anymore. You have to rework. You have to spend more time on it. So higher lead time too. Well, let's play a small game together. Who in this room uses a style guide? Interesting. And now, who uses a style guide but still experience one of these issues? Raise your hand. What is wrong? Why? We did it, but yeah, I experienced that too. Let's focus and let's understand together what was wrong and how we can improve that. And to understand that, we'll go through 4 aspects of modern style guides. together, step by step, with concrete example that I faced at Qonto. First, linters and prettier. It's actually a form of style guide. To sum up, linters are a preset of rules that analyze your code and that will detect some patterns, that will identify patterns that you prefer or that you want to deprecate. This is really powerful. A small example, here is the most used linter. It's ESLint, it's for ECMAScript, JavaScript. You have a lot of rules. We have more than 200 of them. Some of them are recommended, some of them have the fixable option. It's highly customizable. You can choose either if it's through an error, if it's through a warning. You have a lot of possibilities. So, what are the strengths of linters? Linters are literally a style guide automation. You don't have to read a single document. It's just writing your code and, oh, an error. I have to fix that. I have to use the other pattern. You can't push this code to production. It's instant. And everyone knows it. And I talked about the fix option earlier. The fix option is the more powerful tool that you can use with linters, because it allows you to automatically fix the deprecated pattern with the one that we want, with a good one. But we are now starting to visualize the weaknesses. What if we have no fix option? Imagine, you add a new lint rule to your project, you run the command, and now you have 100 files on error. What should I do? It's too painful. I have weeks of refactoring. I don't know. Another weakness, if it's a pattern that is not yet a lint rule. For example, you speak with your team, you agree on a pattern that you want to use, that you don't want to use, and we say, okay, how can we do that? We don't have a lint rule for that. Here is the weakness. Even if it's something specific to your company, specific to your business logic. Common lint rules don't do that. But wait, should we create something for that? Do's and don'ts. Do's and don'ts is a document, is a style guide where you just document the pattern that you agreed on with your team, where you document them, and you explicit what are the good, what are the bad syntax. Let's see it together. I'm taking the example of what we use at Qonto. Actually, it's on Notion, but you can use anything you want, if it fits your need. We have the title of the page. Here we have the table of contents with the patterns that we want to explicit. And here we jump to use flat attribute last, for example. We don't have a lint rule for that, so we need to explicit it to say, hey, we prefer to use it last in the file. It's very explicit, and it corresponds to the syntax that linters uses in their documentation. You know, they explain, oh, this is incorrect, this is correct, etc. Let's try that together. Let's find a pattern that we want to deprecate, and let's add it to the do's and don'ts. Here's codebase. I have the CTA add a new rule. Again, this is not advertisement for Notion. We use it. Let's take the example of the concat helper. We don't want to use it anymore because it's not needed. It's automatically supported by the handlebar syntax. Angle bracket syntax, sorry. Let's add a small description and let's explicit the bad pattern. The pattern that we don't want to use. And we should, on the other hand, provide an alternative to that. It's a good one. You can put a little bit of style. And that's it. We just added a style guide rule that everyone in your company, anyone in your team can refer to. Imagine you have a code, you are making code review, and in every single code review, you have to explain why you shouldn't use concat helper. It's a lose of time, it's very repetitive for you, it's painful, basically. Here, you just have to link this style guide rule to the merge request. To sum up, what are the strengths? It's an easy way to document patterns that are not yet an existing lint rule, or that are very specific to you. It makes you win time during your reviews, providing documentation, providing why we shouldn't use this pattern. We saw that it's quick to add a new one. It's pretty straightforward. And we can use it for component deprecation too. You just have to explicit which component you shouldn't use and which component you should use instead. But we are back to a written document, to a text document, just like 5,000 years ago. That's bad. We have all the associated side effects. People don't read it. People are not aware that it exists. People who read it forget about it. It's so painful. But wait, what if we just transform the style guide rule we just created to a lint rule? No panic. We'll do it together, you will see, step by step. I intentionally checked out a project that I use every day, so you can see that you can add it in your day-to-day projects. But you can also do it for sure in a new project. It will be fine too. First, let's go in the lib folder. Let's create a folder that will correspond to our custom plugin that we'll add. And here, let's add a rule for our concat helper again. Let's do it along with the flow. No concat helper.js. It follows the file structure of regular linters. And then we have our file. We'll put the content of a rule. And here, we just register the plugin we just created. So then, when you will run Ember template lint, it will trigger the regular lint rule that you have in your project, plus the one we just added. And we want it to throw an error, for sure. Then, what do we put inside this file that we just created? In this file, we'll use something that comes from sorry about it. We use something that comes from Ember template lint itself. We'll extend this class, the rule class, to name it with our concat helper. And inside this extended class, this extended rule, we will have the visitor function. The visitor function is what will visit all our code and try to identify a specific pattern. What is our specific pattern? Remember, it's our concat helper. We'll go back to it later. First, let's figure out how to identify it inside your code. How can we say, okay, this is a concat helper, I want to throw an error here. We have to use a special syntax that is called AST. AST stands for Abstract Syntax Tree. Is the definition? It's a tree representation of your source code. Your source code at build time is converted to an AST syntax. It's similar to JSON. But yeah, this is a theory. Let's do some practice. For this, we will use a tool that is called AST Explorer. And we'll have on the side the code that we produce, and the other side the AST translation. You can see that it's in real time, so when I will write code on the left, it will instantly be reflected on the right, and we'll be able to explore it. Here, we are using handlebar syntax because we are in a template to identify the concat helper, but we can also use it for JavaScript, for CSS files. It's really customizable, and I really use it every time I'm debugging, every time I'm creating a lint rule. Let's create something simple. Let's create a p tag, for example, to see how it's displayed on the AST side. You can see it created an element node. And here is our p tag. It's the element node with tag p. That's all. Let's put some text inside. Let's see how it goes. Okay, we have another node inside of this one, a nested one. Text node. Sounds pretty straightforward. Now, let's see with the pattern that we want to identify. Let's write the concat helper. Let's just use it with a mustache statement, concat helper, some string value, some other string value, and a variable. Okay. How is it? Here we have it. Inside the mustache statement, we have the pass expression. The pass expression is our concat helper. The pass expression with original concat. That's what we want. Let's just double check that it's always like this, with a more complex invocation of the concat helper. Like, we have a component, inside of it we have an attribute, the label one, and the value of this attribute is concat something, something, a string, and another variable. Here we are. It's still a pass expression with original concat. So now we have it. We can add it to our file. Here. First, I want to visit my code, and every time you will find a pass expression, you will do something. If this pass expression original is equal to concat, here we are. We have identified it. So what do we want to do? We want to throw an error. We want to log it. Here's the syntax. It's this.log, and inside of it, you can write your custom message. Here, concat helper is deprecated. And the node. The node will help you to visualize in the error that the file, the identified file is an error, and the line where it is. And that's all we need. We just wrote our lint rule. Now let's run it. Let's figure out if it works. We have some occurrences of the concat helper in our codebase. Okay, that's good. Now let's run the command. Here, lint.js is an alias for Ember template lints, basically. It works. We have few errors. That's great. That's what we wanted. Congratulations. What are the strengths of writing your own lint rule? It automates our do's and don'ts. You know, the written document that was painful to read, that nobody reads. Here it's directly in your code. You don't have to worry about it. If you write something wrong, you will just throw an error. You will not be able to push this code in production. This is what we want. It has the exact same usage of regular lint rules. What I mean is that you don't have to run a specific command for your additional lint rule. It's just Ember template lint. It will run your existing lint rule, and it will run the new one in the same way. And what is powerful is that it prevents the new additions of deprecated patterns. It's also possible to use it for component deprecation. And it's the same purpose. Do you remember that? Or fake component. It's an element node this time with a tag fake component. The tag is just the name of the component, finally. Let's write a lint rule for that too. Let's deprecate a component. For example, the X input. X input is a component that we have in this project, so it will be easier to visualize if it works. Here we write element node, as we saw on the slide before, in the AST. And we just adapt the message, and that's it. We register our new rule. So no X input. And just below, we want it to throw an error too. Here we are. We just deprecated the component. To be sure, let's just try out. If we have some occurrences in the code, yeah, we have some. Now we can switch and run the command. Same as the previous one. And yeah, we deprecated the X input component. But wait. What's next? Why should we fix the files on error? How could we do it? We have no fix option. It will not be done automatically. We have no code mode for that. So yeah, here is the point where it's painful. It's painful because when you add a new lint rule, you have to schedule refactoring. You have to spend time adapting your code base to that. It implies huge refactoring sometimes. Imagine, I had less than 25 here. Imagine it was 200. Yeah, it's weeks. It takes weeks. It's hard to slice, it's hard to organize, hard to estimate, and it can lead to frustration, a lot of frustration, and hopelessness. We don't see the end. We don't see the end of the refactoring. But we have something for that. We have a solution. Lint to the future. What is Lint to the future? Lint to the future is an NPM package that you can add to your project, created by Chris Manson. In case you don't know Chris Manson, this is him. And it basically allows you to update progressively, to update gradually your code base to the newest best practices, to the newest pattern. And that's where it will be helpful. It helps us to add new lint rule to existing code base. Let's figure it out together. I'm in the same project, in the same terminal, just after I run the command. You remember? We add it. It's explained in the README of the package. Once I have added it, I can run npx lint to the future. And what will be done is that it will ignore, on top of my file, it will ignore the lint rule that is failing. You can see it in the diff. No concat helper here. No concat helper. And what is the purpose of that? Then I will be able to run my linter once again, but this time it will pass. It allows us to easily add a new lint rule. We were blocked by the dozen of errors. We were blocked. We don't want to spend months to refact that. We just want to add the lint rule to prevent new occurrences, to prevent new addition of this pattern. It allows us to do that. It allows us to remove the deprecation one by one, because when you edit a file, when you make a change on a file, and you see that on top of it, you have an ignore on this thing, you can refactor it. It's easy. You are here. Let's do it. And I will show you something else. Thanks to the Lint to the Future dashboard that we will see together right after, it allows us to slice, organize, and estimate the refactoring of our code base. Here is the Lint to the Future dashboard. It's an automatically generated page that lists all the lint rules that you ignore in your code base. And you can see the evolution with the time. Here, for example, we have require completed property dependencies. And you can see with the dates, with the time, that it decreased in our code base. You can see it weekly, you can see it daily, and you have all of them. It helps you to see the progress that you are going to do, that you are doing. It helps you to see when it will be ended, finally. And it's really pleasant to see the progress. Here, we had a significant drop. It's so nice. We love it. And now, that's it. We went through the 4 types, through the 4 aspects of modern style guides. But wait, we didn't talk about Styleguide-Flows. Actually, we did. We did it all along this presentation, all along the 4 aspects of modern style guides. You remember? We did this flow together. We built together every single step of this modern style guide. With concrete example we face together. But we shouldn't see it as a straight line. We should see it as a cycle. We should see it as a flow. Because every single of these elements can't exist if the previous one is not here. It's just the coexistence of all of them. Do you remember? Let's do it again together. In the future, when you will add a preset of lint rules in your project, and then you will start to face some issues. You want more specific lint rules. You want to agree on a pattern with your team. You want to document it. So 2, you create the do's and don'ts. You create your style guide to document it, your text document. But you start to face the limits. It's a written document, it's bad. We want something more powerful. So 3, you write your own lint rule based on your style guide rules. You add it to the project, you run it, and then you have dozens of files on error. You run lint to the future. And you just ignore the files with your new lint rule. And that's it. Your lint rules, your new one, is added to the existing lint rules. The loop is complete. Congratulations. Now, you can run the command, you can do anything you want, it will be included. And step by step, you will remove the occurrences of the pattern that you deprecated. And you will see the progress with lint to the future dashboard. Let's sum up together. What are the benefits of using this kind of flow? It's literally an automated style guide. It's lint rules. It's directly in your code. You can't avoid it. And it includes the last pattern. It's customizable. It fits your needs, the needs of your team, your business logic. And it's now possible to slice, to organize, to estimate, and to visualize the project, to visualize the progress of the refactoring in your code base. Thanks to the lint to the future dashboard. That's the benefit of Styleguide-Flows. Thank you, everyone.